games. It's ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today we have the next installment of my Understanding How to Build series, where I go over all the leaders in a given set to help you understand how to build them to suit you and your playstyle. So, we've already covered one of the Villainy leaders for a Cunning. Now we're going to a second, so we've covered Trench, now we're going over Rio Durant. So if you're interested in this leader, stay tuned, and also don't forget, you can like, comment, and subscribe to help out the channel. It helps out greatly, as we're on the way to 2,000 subs, and we're currently over just under 200 away. And also remember that you can also click the notification bell to get alerts for when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then, or at a later time that suits you best. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into understanding how to build Rio Durant. So we'll start with the leader, as Star Wars is a leader-based game, and the main things you need to play the game are a leader and a base. And with the leader, that's what you're going to build your deck around, because some are very generic while some are very focused on a certain way to play or trait. And for Rio, he also sports the new kind of deploy, being that you can either deploy him as a ground unit, so in the ground arena at 5 more resources, or you can have him as a pilot, so equipping him as an upgrade to a vehicle without a pilot on it. So you got nice little options there, and we're going to go basically see what you can do, because with his traits he's got Underworld and Pilot, so there's a good amount of support for Underworld, especially in Cunning as well. And the aspects he gives you is Cunning and Villainy, or as they like to say, I think actually Villainy is not black, it's purple. That's what I think, so we'll just go with it's yellow and purple if you want to go by like the color route rather than the aspects names. And he deploys quite early at 5 more resources, which means as early as turn 4, you could drop him down, either as a free 5 Saboteur in the ground arena, or putting as an upgrade on a vehicle that doesn't have a pilot, and that gives him a free 5 boost, so an extra 3 power and 5 health. And also, the nice thing about that is it then makes the attached unit a leader unit, so you do have a leader unit is that unit. And it also gains Saboteur, and if it's a transport, so if it's got the transport trait, it also gets an extra 1 power, so you make it a little bit stronger if it's a transport unit, which there are a fair few, and there are some pretty nice ones as well. And Saboteur, if you don't know what that means, it allows you to bypass any sentinels that might be on the board in that arena, and also defeats any shields when you attack into a unit. So pretty nice skill there, and also, he kind of does the same when he's in the leader area. So his action in the leader area is you don't need to pay 1 resource and tap him, so you need to do that. That's the cost. And then attack with a space unit, so you get the straight up attack with it, and it gets an extra 1 plus power, so an extra 1 power there, and also gains Saboteur for that attack. So that's pretty nice, in that you give a space unit extra focus on power, and also Saboteur so they can ignore shields if the opposing unit has them. Well, defeat them if they do have them, and then go ahead and ignore sentinels as well. So it's a pretty nice way, and as you can see from the focus of it, is all about Saboteur, so ignoring shields and sentinels, and also with his leader side effect, it's all about space units. So if you want to focus on it, only gives the boost to a space unit, not any unit, because he is a pilot. So you might want to go more on space with this leader, especially since he can upgrade and give his stats as a power boost when he does upgrade, which is pretty nice. So that's basically the leader. So we've kind of understand a little bit about what he wants to do and what his kind of focus is, and also do remember that all leaders get a showcase. And this is Rio's, and this looks more like Harry Potter than the Star Wars, because he looks like, to me, he looks more like the Nibbler. No, not Nibbler, or I can't remember the one he has in his pockets in the Fantastic Beasts. That was always trying to like grab money and like just grab anything that's shiny and just store it in his pouch. But yeah, like, you know, remember with showcases that they are alternative arts and more shiny arts to give you more of a flair to your deck. And the thing with art is always subjective, so it kind of, if you like it, that's fair enough. If you don't like it, that's also fair enough. It's just how you perceive it. And since you're going to be the one playing it, your view is the one that matters, because you're either going to be playing it if you like it or not if you don't like it. So that is it for the leader and the showcase. So next we're going to go into the basic information, because I like to make sure that this series appeals to all levels. So if you're a beginner, you get everything you need, and if you're a veteran, you get the stuff you're looking for. So we're going to give us some basic information like bases, aspects, and ratios so that you have that understanding if you are a brand new player. And if you're more veteran and feel you don't need this kind of information, feel free to check out the description below. Down there I have timestamps for the video to go over all different sections of it. So if you're looking for a specific kind of thing, then go ahead, check that out, and then skip towards it if you feel you don't need this basic information we're about to go over. So there we go. And now stay tuned for all you new players for this basic bit of information. Now the first bit of basic information I'm going to go over is the bases, because just like a leader, it's the ever essential bit of kit you need to play the game, because what a leader determines and how it helps you build around your deck around to make sure you're building it correctly for that leader, making full use of it. The base is how you determine how you win or lose the game. And the thing with that is that there's only one way to win and only one way to lose, and that is by damage to base. And each base is 30 health, so that means, well, not 30 health, but each base has a certain amount of health. And essentially, if you do enough damage to your opponent's base equal to their health, you win. And if the opponent does it to you, they win. So pretty simple there. And there are two types of bases currently in the game. There are rare bases, which have varying levels of health, and come equipped with effects to compensate or take away from having more health. And then the common bases all 30 health, and they kind of differ by art and kind of name and location and stuff like that. So we go over these two types of bases so you understand what they kind of do and kind of see what you might prefer for a base. So we'll start off with the rare bases, because these are the ones that kind of vary drastically between them. And there are currently 12 rare bases. So we have 4 in certain sets. So set 1 we had 4. We skipped set 2 having rare bases. We had 2 basically you had the same rare bases for 2 sets. Then we had some in set 3, and then again in set 4. And they all have a certain kind of theme. Like set 1's theme is epic actions, which is basically a effect that allows you got to take an action to do it, but it's only just like deploy a one-time use. Once it's used up, that's it, it's gone. So you get a one-time use of effects on a base. And then set 3's rare bases were all about like a leader focus, so like focusing when your leader's out or when they deploy, which gives them more of a Twin Suns focus 5, so you can have 2 leaders in that format. And the set 3 rare bases are all about your deck building size and opening hand. That's the theme of those. So with the first set of rare bases, they're all 25 health, all of them an epic action, and they vary in playability. Because back in set 1 and 2, the best rare base, or the best base in the game, was ECL, or Energy Conversion Lab, as is shortened to ECL, and that's because Ambush is such a great skill. But then given how the game's evolved and changed over the sets, Tarkin Town has now taken that slot of being the most used base, given how it helps with the tempo of the game. And the set 3 bases I don't have on here because, one, it's space issues, like I'm trying to get more on there will make it way too small so you can kind of see them. Let me know if you can, or if you feel like it'd better have all of them. And they're also not included because they're not that great for the main format, because, like I said, they're all about when your leader deploys or your leader's out, giving like a stat boost or having something when they deploy. And that's more of a lot better if you have more leaders, like in Twin Suns where you have 2 leaders and 1 base. Whereas in the normal format, you have 1 leader, 1 base. And given their health totals, it's not really worth it outside of some very niche cases or some certain kind of leaders. Now, with the set 4 bases, like I said, they are focused on your deck size, so your minimum deck size, and also your opening hand. So, and also, before I get onto the kind of theme for it, this is the first time we got bases where they have more health to 30, which we didn't have before. So we got 2 that are more health, being Colossus and Data Vault, and given that they have more health, they have more of a negative effect. And with Realm-Oscillator and the Bat Village, they have less health at 27 both, so they have more positive effect due to having less health. Now the 2 that have a deck building size focus are Data Vault and Realm-Oscillator, which, given the increase or decrease, focusing on increasing or decreasing your minimum deck size. So Data Vault for extra health, you get a increased deck size, and this one takes your minimum deck size from 50 to 60. And for Realm-Oscillator, for the decrease in health, you get a decrease in your deck size, meaning you now have a minimum deck size of 45 instead of 50. So pretty nice ones, helps consistency of the deck, and it's up to you to determine if you feel like the increase or decrease in health is worth amending your deck size. Now the other 2 are focused on the hand size, and just like with the other 2, with Colossus having more health, you've got a decrease in your hand size. So for Colossus, having 5 more health means you have 1 less card in your opening hand. That could make a big difference or not much of a difference depending on how you feel about it, but it is a pretty nice effect. Like having 1 less card that have more health, is that 5 health worth losing out on a card? And in the Bat Village, this one has less health, so it's more positive. And this one takes away your mulligans. You might see it as negative, but you get to open with 9 cards in your hand. So rather than look at 2 sets of 6 cards, so 12 cards in total, but of course 2 hands of 6, you get to look at 1 hand of 9, but you can't mulligan. So you get to see more cards. You might be thinking what the benefit of that is. Well, it essentially means that rather than look at it like you have an increased amount of cards in your opening hand, meaning you have a better chance of making sure you've got an opening play, like a turn 1 play, and like making sure you have the cards you want to have a better opening or beginning the game. And also, if you're a combo deck, allows you to make sure you're seeing those combo pieces or things you need to set up that combo, you know, like in the start of the game. So more increased likelihood of having a better opening. But you don't get to keep those 3 extra cards because that would be nuts, that'd be crazy. So it's got an effect where at the start of the first action phase, you need to put 3 cards in your hand at the bottom of your deck in a random order, well, in the order you choose, sorry. So you don't get to keep those 3 cards, but it does help you have a more consistent opening for more games, which is pretty nice. So those are the rare bases. So if you feel like any of those rare bases aren't really worth it, you don't really want any of those rare bases, you don't want less health for those kind of effects, then always you can go for the common bases, or like I call them vanilla. I say vanilla because vanilla is a term in TCGs for things that have no effects, that are just plain, and that's what common bases are. Because currently they're just 30 health bases, all 30, and they differ in the fact they only have different aspects, art, name, and location. Currently in set 4, there is no benefit to having a certain name or location on your base. There might be a change in the future, that'd be cool, but we don't know yet. So the only thing you need to do for a common base is pick which aspect you want for a base. Then in that aspect, pick out your favorite art of that base, out of the bases there, and basically use that. Simple as that. And on screen we have my preferred arts for the common bases. We have the top ones being the new Hyperspace foil, which you can't normally get, that you can get now of older bases, thanks to the Twin Suns deck boxes for Engagenic. And the bottom ones are the preferred arts from set 4 that I pretty like in each of these aspects as well. So that's the basis. So hopefully that's helped you understand about the rare bases and what you might prefer for a base. So you normally have to decide if you want a rare base or a common base and which one you want to have. And now we're going to get to the aspects because that's important, considering that you have them on your leader and your base. So now we have the aspects, and the thing with the aspects are these are what you get to determine when you can play cards and things like that. And they all have a certain style of play and provide you with different things in their different aspects. Like for example, we have Villainy, which features all the antagonists of the Star Wars universe and focus on having more destructive and powerful effects. And then we have Heroism, focusing the protagonists of the Star Wars universe, and these ones focus on more like helpful and beneficial effects for each other, like teammates and stuff like that. So Villainy is more of control and destruction, and Villainy is more support and rebellious. So kind of fits with the names of them. And then you got the other aspects being Vigilance, Command, Aggression, and Cunning. Now these sometimes refer to a color as well as their names. So if you hear like the color name, then you can normally see them. And they also have a certain style of play. So what I'm going to do is basically go over each of them to kind of see if that kind of any of them matches what you kind of prefer, and kind of see where we go from there. So start with the first one, Blue, which is Vigilance. That's the name of it, but it's sometimes referred to as Blue. This is a very defensive one, because what it offers is healing, protection, and removal. So it's got healing and be able to heal your base units, protection and be able to like block your base from being attacked by sentinels or even give shields to the units, and then removal, like to basically just have ways to remove units from board, but via effects or events. So if you like a very patient, controlling playstyle, then Vigilance is a good one for that. Next we have Command, and this is the ramp aspect, because in most card games where you have a resource to resources to kind of be able to determine how you can play cards, you usually have a ramp one to increase those resources. And for Command, that is what we have for ramp. Well, ramp is the command one, and it allows you to ramp up your resources so you can play out bigger things or more things quickly, so you can overwhelm your opponents. So if you like to overwhelm your opponents with a massive board presence or with big things or tall things, then Command is a perfect aspect for you to try out. Next we have Aggression, and just like the name suggests, it is a very aggressive aspect, because it's where most of the aggression decks have, because it just throws out damage or just attacks the base. So if you like very fiery playstyles and like to just swing and be very aggressive to your opponent, if you like damage or just aggro in the general sense of the term, then aggression is a perfect one for you to go for. And that leaves us with Cunning. And this is the jack of all trades aspects, because it likes to offer you like multiple effects, multiple options, and also almost a way to deal with anything your opponent might throw at you, and multiple ways to kind of disrupt their kind of what they want to do. So if you like to have answers to almost anything that your opponent might throw at you, then Cunning is a perfect one for you to go for. And the thing with these aspects is the four color ones are on all your leaders and bases and most cards, but Villainy and Heroism are also on cards, but they're quite unique in, unlike the other ones, they can be attached with the other ones on cards as well. So Villainy can be on its own cards and attached with the other aspects. That goes for Villainy and Heroism. Now, since you have a leader and a base, and your leader comes with two aspects, being either Villainy or Heroism, and one of the other ones, your base provides you with another one of the four color ones. That gives you 4 different aspect combos, because there's 4 different colors, and that brings you these ones for Durant. Oh, Rio, sorry. So if you go for a blue base, you'd be yellow-blue. If you go green base, then you go yellow-green. For a red base, you get yellow-red. And if you go for double yellow, or if you go for yellow base, you go for double yellow, and it gives you access to some double aspect cards, and then you've got to think about that, and we'll get to that point if you want to sacrifice a whole other aspect to have access to some double aspect cards. So we're going to get into a little bit what the benefits of each of these aspect combos are, but first we need to go over the aspect penalty, because this is very important to the when it comes to playing. Because when it comes to your deck building, you can put absolutely anything you want in your deck. Any card you want in your deck, you can put in. But when it comes to playing the actual cards, that's where the aspect penalty comes into play. And if you don't know what it is, essentially, if you would go to play a card, and an aspect on that card doesn't match what's on your leader and or base, you have to then pay an additional 2 costs for every aspect that doesn't match to be able to play that card. So here I have a handy dandy guide, because I like to make sure I'm evolving the series and improving it, so that way it's more beneficial as people go on, and make sure it's always helpful. And people kind of learn in 3 different ways. They learn by seeing, hearing, seeing, or doing. So I'll make sure I've got it covered by explaining it. Also, I've got this new little visual, so you can kind of see it a little bit easier, and then you could go ahead and do it if you learn that way by just playing the game and trying it out. So here I've got an example of Rio with a red base. So that gives us the aspects of Villainy, Cunning, and Aggression. So that gives us access to, as colors say, black, yellow, and red. So for the first example in the top box, if you were to play a card and all the aspects match what's on your leader and or base, like in this example, you pay no additional cost, you just pay it for the printed cost. Now if you were to play a card where one of the aspects did not match, then you have to pay 2 additional costs, like shown in the second middle box, and that would mean that you then have to basically pay, for example, if a card costs 2 and one aspect didn't match, that's an extra 2 on top, meaning that a card costs 4, and that's now double the cost. Also do note that each aspect only provides one of itself, so if you have a double red card you want to play, one of the red aspects would be covered by your base. Because you don't have a second red aspect on your leader, you then have to pay an additional 2 to cover that second one, because only one is covered at a time. So do bear that in mind for it when it comes to double aspect. And that gives us the last example, being the lower one, where if you have a card that has 2 aspects on it, and both of those don't match what's on your leader and or base, you have to pay an additional 4 on top. So once again, with our example, if you had a 2-cost card and 2 aspects on it didn't match what's on your leader and base, that's an extra 4 on top, which now the card costs triple the cost, 6 instead of 2, and that's a huge bump in cost. Also do remember that while the aspect penalty does make a card a little bit more expensive because it's out of aspect, sometimes a card might be worth playing due to its effects. The perfect example is the double aspect events from set 1. They are 4-cost events that give you 4 options. You can choose any 2 and resolve them how you choose. And sometimes you don't want to play double aspect for them. You don't want to play like double blue for Vigilance. Sometimes you want to play it even if you're playing a dual aspect deck. And that means the card will cost 6 instead of 4, and sometimes that is worth the cost considering what the card does. So do bear in mind that while the aspect penalty makes the card more expensive, sometimes that extra bit of cost on it is sometimes worth what the card does. So that's the aspects. Now we're going to do the last bit of basic information I feel you need if you're a brand new player, and that is the ratios. So next up we have the ratios, and this is referring to how many copies of a given card you can play in your deck. And with any card game, it kind of differs. And for Star Wars, it is 3 copies of cards you can have maximum in your deck. So that means you can have up to 3, 2, or 1 copies of any given card, and I'm going to help explain when you'd want to have that many in your deck for a certain card. So we got 3 copies of a card first, so the full maximum playset of a card, and this is the ratio to help maximize the likelihood the desired card will be in your hand when needed. And the good examples are being cards you want to play on your first turn, or cards you want to see over multiple course of the game. So resupply is the good example because if you're playing command, you're playing ramp, and it's the easiest card, the ramp, and the quickest one as well, because it's only costs 3, so you can play it as early as turn 2. And where it's not got the Villainy or heroic trait, it can be played in any deck as long as playing green without incurring asset penalty. And this is simple because if you want to ramp, you just play this, and it puts itself in the play as a resource, easy enough, and it's something that's quick and easy to play. And sometimes you want to put 3 copies because you can play it as early as possible. And if you do play it as early as possible by turn 2, you then go into your third turn with 5 resources instead of 4, so you can play more things or a bigger thing quicker. So that is kind of a good example of the 3 copies. Then we have 2 copies, and my example for this is Rival's Fall, because this is usually the ratio for cards that aren't great to draw early in the game, but you still want to go through multiple copies over the course of the game. And the best examples of that are some of the boss cards and high costing cards as well. Now, Rival's Fall is a perfect example because there are removal events in this game, and usually the lower the cost, the more restrictive, the higher the cost, the less restrictive. And when it comes to some of the cards as well, sometimes they will say a non-leader, so you can't hit leaders with them, so that means the leaders are a little bit harder to hit by effects. But Rival's Fall is perfect because it hits absolutely any unit, even a leader. And where it's so high costing, you don't want to have it opening in your opening hand because either you're resourcing it, which means you lose access to it, or you are keeping it in hand, which means you're lowering the amount of cards you have to play in your hand for the early turns of the game, just to keep hold of it so you can use it when you want. But if you have less copies, like 2 copies maybe, then that's a way to maybe not see it in your opening hand, but see it later in the game when you actually want to use it to take out your opponent's leader. And then lastly, we have 1 copy of a card. Now this is the ratio usually for cards that are added to a deck in order to counter a specific situation, or are tech choices for like kind of interactions that they feel could be useful in kind of niche circumstances. An example I like to use is Restock, because it's a perfect example to help, like when people put this card in to help counter hard control decks. Because hard control, like it says in the name, it wants to focus on controlling the game, and that's all they're doing. They're just focusing on making sure they're always in control of the game, and that means they're not focusing on damage. And that means what they want to do to kind of win the game, since you can only win by doing damage to a base, is rely on deck out damage. And that means that if you were to go to draw a card, and you can't draw a card, you take 3 damage to your base for every card you can't draw. So in the regroup phase, when you don't draw cards, if you can't draw 1, that's 3 damage to your base. If you can't draw both, that's 6 damage to your base. And that means hard control decks will focus on controlling the game, try to get you to deck out, and then go ahead and have you take damage by decking out, so you can win that way. But Restock allows you to put up the 4 cards from a discard pile back on the bottom of the owner's deck in a random order. And given how the game functions, you can put itself as one of those 4 cards, so you can loop itself back over and over again to make sure you never deck out, so that way you force hard control decks to find a different way to kind of win the game rather than that deck out damage. And that is the ratio, so hopefully that's helped you understand whether you want to have 3, 2, or 1 copies of a card. And now we're getting to that all important information you're probably most likely looking for, especially if you're a more seasoned player. And that's about the different aspect combos and the benefits. So before we get into the other aspects, I want to go over the double aspect first, because this is important, because it gives you a more limited amount of cards compared to the other ones. Because with double aspect, you sacrifice a whole other aspect just to have access to these 10 cards. And back in set 1, it wasn't the best to go for most decks, so 1 leader in each aspect was worth it. But now we've got more sets and more cards. We've got the benefit of every leader having the good chance to go in double aspect and potentially doing well. And when it comes to double aspect, you've got to think, you have 10, you sacrifice a whole aspect for 10 cards, as set 4 anyway, and you've got to think about, are the cards good enough to benefit what the leader wants to do? Like if the leader is very generic, it has a better chance of going for it. If it's very specific in what it wants to do, maybe not. And for Rio, while he isn't massively focused on space units, his leader effect is all about having a space unit and using it on a space unit. So you might want to focus on that, but you can still go around using other things as well to support those space units. And for the double aspects, we got 4 sets of them. So for set 1, we had Bodhi, Rook, Cantina Bouncer, and Cunning. These were all, and these still are, all really good cards. Now, the 2 units aren't space units, but they're still decent because Bodhi, Rook, and Cantina Bouncer have decent stats for their cost, especially Bodhi having really good stats for its cost. And they have 1 in plate effects. Now, Bodhi allows you to rip out a non-unit card from your opponent's hand when it's played, and Katina Bouncer allows you to bounce any unit that's not a leader back to its owner's hand. It could be yours or your opponent's. So they're very handy ones, but once again, they're not vehicles, so they don't benefit from Rio's front side, but they are still pretty good cards. And then Cunning's a really good card no matter what, because it's a 4-cost event that offers you 4 options, and any 2 of them you can resolve however you choose. And it's got really options because you have a bounce a 4-power non-leader unit back to the hand. You can give a unit 4+ power, you can rest 2 units, or you can make your opponent discard a random card from their hand. It's all solid effects that you can make use of no matter what if you're going double aspect, or even playing it out of aspect. And then for set 2, we got some nice cards. You might be thinking, DJ's not a double aspect card, why is it here? Well, it technically is a double aspect card because its smuggle cost is double aspect. So it's like the reverse of, I can't remember the unit, it was a blue one that had double aspect for normal pub, but then normal for the smuggle, because it's kind of like reverse for DJ. And with these two, like you got the, once again, DJ is not a, probably not a good choice, because one, it's not a vehicle, so it doesn't benefit from Rio's front side, but it is also a way to like take units, but the only really leader that can make full use and the best use of DJ is Han, because it's the only one that allows you to kind of have a way to destroy the resource you take from your opponents. That way you get to keep it and take away from your opponent's resource while adding to yours. Now for the other events, they're pretty nice. You got New Adventure, which is pretty good, which you can return a non-leader unit that costs 6 or less back to his own hand and play it back out for free. So you can kind of make use of one-played effects and even like jump out damage. So you can jump it back to hand so it's basically damage falls off and then play it back in fresh and new. And then Final Shadow's a pretty nice one where it's basically an all-in card where you can restand everything you have on board, but at the end of the turn, if you don't win the game, you lose the game. So it's like kind of like a final gambit, which is pretty nice and kind of pretty in theme. And then for set 3, we got some more cards. We got Jar Jar Binks, Chancellor Palpatine, and Impropriety Among Thieves. Now once again, Jar Jar and the Chancellor aren't vehicles, but they are pretty decent. Well, at least Chancellor Palpatine. Now Jar Jar isn't great. It's a turn 1 play, not bad stats, but it's got that randomness of hitting yourself or instead of your opponent. So it's got that like randomness and gamble to it. It's not the best one to play. And Palpatine's pretty nice, but once again, not a vehicle, but it does allow you to kind of build up some token units, but they're ground units, so once again, not making use of Rio. And then you got Impropriety Among Thieves. And this essentially has got war text, but essentially what it wants to do is choose a active, a ready unit, both you and your opponent control. Switch control of them. At the end of the turn, you switch them back. So it means if you take your opponent's unit and then you take your opponent's unit, and if you destroy your opponent's unit by attacking into it and suffering and crashing it, and they don't get it back. But if your unit that you give them survives, you get it back. So it's a nice little benefit there. And it has to be ready units. It can't be rested ones. So you got to kind of think about that. And that brings us to the last one, probably the most useful one of outside of Cunning for our kind of Rio, and that is the Mandalorian. Because it's one of those units we got now, which are a pilot, so they can be played as a ground unit, or played as an upgrade on space, like on vehicles, which could be pretty handy since you're going to mainly be focusing on vehicles for Rio, because it's got that focus on it on the front side. You might be playing this because it's a great card, because you either play it as a ground unit and get these 2 ground units when it's played and have solid stats, or you pilot onto a vehicle and get the benefit of resting something in that same arena it's in and give a boost to that vehicle by 3 power and 1 health. So a very nice one, and in theme with the Cunning's kind of focus. Now you got to think about, are these cards worth playing with Rio? Given that you got no vehicles here, but you've got a pilot, which is pretty good, and Cunning's a good event. But is that worth sacrificing whatever aspect for? If it is, go ahead and try it. If it's not, then we're going to go and have a look and see what else we've got. Right, now before we get into the other aspects that you get when you get a base in the mix, we want to first go over what Rio offers himself, because remember, Rio has the Cunning aspect and the Villainy side of it as well. So you can have a look at some of the cards we get. So for the Villainy side of Cunning, you got some pretty nice cards. You got some very good events, like No Gonna Be Dead and Triple Dark Raid being very good ones. You got some good ground units as well, like Bazine being a good opening play for like a bit of hand control, giving the hand knowledge and also disruption. And we also Boba Fett, just like the Mandalorian, a pretty good pilot, and also can play either in ground or an upgrade. And along to make use of Rio's kind of effect, focusing on when it's in the leader area as a focus on vehicles, being attacked for a bit more power, we got some good vehicles here. So you got the Zygerian Starhopper is a good turn 1 play, and then for the turn 2 play, you got good ones in like the Houndstooth and Lurking Tie Phantom, and you even got some ones in the ground room you can play, especially since you can come out the turn Rio can deploy, being Techno Union Transport. which is a nice one. Even that you come in shielded, so you can put Rio on this, and it's shielded, so it's protected from damage at least. And then it is it's a 4 or 6 that then becomes with Rio on it, it comes out as 8/11 because it's a transport unit, so it gets that boost of power thanks to Rio, and it becomes down as 8/11 shielded, which is pretty powerful, pretty hard to deal with, unless you can get rid of shield or defeat a leader instantly. So pretty nice one there. And in the Cunning side, of the non-villainy side, you've got some pretty nice ones. You've got good spaceships. So you've got good vehicles. Remember, not all vehicles are spaceships. So you've got the Land Speeder, Outer Rim Headhunter, Razor Crest, and Geonis Patrol Fighter. Some good examples there. And my favorite on this, I always put when there's a leader that can jump, like upgrade onto a vehicle, deploy onto a vehicle, Headhunter, because it's got one attack allowing you to rest the non-leader unit if you control a non-leader unit, and since the Rio deploying on it would make it a non-leader unit, it means it's always got to affect live because it itself is a leader unit, and then it makes it more powerful. So it will turn it from a 1/3 to a 4/8. That's swinging for 5, rank stab and raid 1. And the other ones have pretty nice effects, like Landspeeder having ambush, Razor Crest getting more benefits anytime you put a pilot on it, and Geonis Patrol Fighter being able to play out cheaper and also bounce things on board. You also got some very nice effects, like Cunning has a lot of good events, and you got nice ones like Swoop Down, allowing you to break the rules of the game by bypassing from arena to arena, be able to attack from the space arena to the ground arena, and get benefits from that attack as well. And then ways to attack with more power, like Surprise Strike, ways to bounce things off board like Waylay, and then be able to take things from your opponent and kind of disrupt them by using things like Commandeer, which is pretty nice. So those are the benefits we get from Rio. Now let's see what we get when we add a different aspect to the mix. So if we were to add Vigilance to the mix, this gives a more controlling kind of playstyle, thanks to Vigilance being more control. So we get some heal, we get some removal, and we get some protection as well. And you've got some pretty nice space units. There's a lot more in the bigger side of it. And you've got Infrared Forward for like early plays, early as turn 1. Nice way to kind of look at top cards of your deck, thanks to its effect, to kind of rearrange them. You got Corvus, which is a pretty nice one with Rio, because you can technically deploy Rio as a ground unit for its deploy on 5 resources. Attack with it because the leader's always coming active, so deploy it as ground, attack with it, and then play the Corvus. Corvus has got effect where you can then, when it's played, you can attach a friendly pilot unit or upgrade to itself. So then you can grab Rio from the ground arena and put it on itself, which then will then have him out of harm's way from the ground arena, and now make the Corvus a 7/10 unit with Restore 2, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of get an attacking with. So if your opponent's like stopping you from getting vehicles on it, so you can't deploy Rio and then swing hard for a nice swing when it's deploy, you can always deploy as a ground arena attack and then play the Corvus to put it on there, put it back on there. So you get a swing out of Rio that same turn and then put it on Corvus. And you get some bigger spaceship, which kind of can come down a little bit earlier, or then wait till later turns to be able to get a big, hard to remove ship. So you have Providence Destroyer, which can come out cheaper thanks to exploit, and also minuses enemy space units it attacks to when it attacks. So it's pretty nice there. Put Rio on that, make it even stronger. Turn it from a 5/7 to a 8/11. Well, no, 8/12, which is cool. And then you got Avenger, which whenever it's played or attacks, you force your opponent to defeat one of your units. A nice way to kind of removal in a body. And then you got some good ground units as well, or even pilots. Like Iden's a very good pilot, be able to come out shielded, or whatever it comes onto shielded. So however it comes out, it's shielded either way. And then on Pike, able to make sure you're keeping shields on units by every time it swings. Put a shield on your opponent's unit and your unit. And if you put it on the unit you don't care about of theirs, you can keep putting space shields on your units to kind of protect them. And then you got some nice removal events as well in Vigilance, with like Paradox Side being a nice one, like a miniature Avenger in an event. And then No Glory only results being able to take out any non-leader unit, but you get to take control of it and then defeat it. So if there's got anyone defeated and things like that, you get to trigger them. Some pretty nice destructive removal, and that's the thing with Vigilance, is that most of its best cards are in the dark or light side of it. And then in the non-dark side of Vigilance, you got some pretty nice stuff. Like you got some pretty cool vehicles you can actually put Rio on. Like you got the Sentinels for either arena, being like System Patrol Craft and Perimeter AT-RT, which come early as turn 3, and then our Sentinels that you can kind of use to defend yourself in those arenas from attacks to your base. You got Cloak Star Viper, which is something you can deploy Rio on, which then It's nice because when it's played, it gives 2 shield tokens, not just 1 but 2. So you can deploy Rio on it to turn it from a 3/2 to a 5/7, and then have 2 shields on it to protect it. It's pretty nice there. And you've even got Cargo Juggernaut, which comes out a shield unit in the ground arena, which can then potentially heal damage from your base, and then thanks to being a vehicle, if you deploy Rio on there, you can make it a 7/11 on the ground. You also have some Ever pilots like Astromech Pilot and Trace Martez. Being pretty nice pilots you can put on your vehicles if you don't want to put Rio on them. And you got some nice events and upgrades like Parastation being a nice good one. First one to minus event stats, and also rest the unit is attached to, and even Takedown is a good example of some of the removal. So if you like to have control and like play a more controlling defensive game, then Vigilance could be a good one to partner with Rio. Next we have Command, and Command is a pretty nice one, and there's a lot of good powerful stuff in the dark side. You got some good ramp and healing removal and stuff, like with Crumb being a nice bit of healing and little pings of damage, and then you got Super Loser Technician as a good bit of ramp. You also got some good space units like Victor Leader be a good one. While it's out, all your friendly space units get extra 1/1 to the stats, which is pretty cool. And you can even put Rio on it to increase its own stats and keep it abound longer, so supporting all of them. So it's a good one for your leader. And then Invisible Hand being a nice one that could help you then have like a nice little droid package to then cheat out some units, because when it's played or attacks, you can look at the top 8 cards for a droid, and if it's 2 or less, you can play it straight out for free, which is pretty nice. So a pretty nice way to make a good use of a droid package, and some good ones for the dark side, especially with the aspect combination as well. And you got some nice bigger units like Vader being a nice one that can even get you some space units out for free, which is pretty cool. And you also got some bigger space units, just like we saw in Vigilance, where you got like Relentless and Devastator being big ones. Offers some nice effects with Relentless shutting off your first event your opponent plays each turn, and Devastator offering you a Sentinel to dominate the space arena and throw damage equal to your resources out on some unit. And then you got Overwhelm and Barrage, which is one of the best best events in the game, allowing to boost up a unit and then deal its power as damage however you choose. So nice way to do that. And it's just basically one of the best events in the game. And in the non-dark side of Command, you've got some other nice stuff, like you've got some good pilots as well you can potentially put in. You also got some nice vehicles, like Sorting Star Viper is a good one that's kind of not seen much play in set 1, but is a pretty good one to potentially have a leader deploy on it. And also you've got other ones like Resupply Carrier and Reinforcement Walker. Be some nice ones with Resupply Carrier offering you more ramp, and Reinforcement Walker being a nice one you can put Rio on that can then either heal or draw you more cards depending on what you want to choose from its effect. You also have some nice events like Resupply for ramp, Timely Adventure for a way to kind of ambush units in, and even Dogfight allowing a unit that's already rested to then go ahead and attack again, not go into base but can attack one of your opponent's units. So if you like to overwhelm your opponent's board and play out some nice strong big things, then Command could be a perfect one to partner with Rio. And then lastly we got Aggression. So this is the more aggressive route, and this is one with, especially with Rio's own aspects, is the combination that's mainly used for aggressive space-focused decks, because obviously with things like Django stuff, got main focus. But here we have basically some good space units. Like you got a lot of good space units you can have. Like you got the good ones for early turns, being like Kylo's TIE Silencer and Special Forces TIE Fighter for your turn 1s. Von Reg for a good one you can have the turn after, and then Imperial Interceptor being a nice one to combat other space units, and being a solid one you play yourself. Then you got your bigger ones like Rufus Raider and Devastator being nice big ones that offer some nice effects, both allowing you damage, especially with Devastator controlling where indirect damage goes, where normally your opponent gets to choose. And then you got some good pilots like Vader and IG-88 being nice pilots you can put on other units you don't put Rio on to get that nice bit buff to them, and also some more swings and some beneficial effects. So that's the dark side. I've gone mainly for a space focus because that is what Rio kind of focuses on as leader side. And then in the ground, not in the ground, but in the non-dark side of Aggression, you've got some pretty nice cards here as well. Like you've got some good units. Like you've got Tarkin as a way to boost up your space units, all your vehicles. You can got Saving Fangfighter to knock off opposing pilots or upgrades as well. And you've even got Hunting Aggressor being a nice one, where if you do have a focus on indirect damage, like you go for that route, this allows you to increase the indirect damage by 1. So indirect damage does an extra 1 more what is on board. And it's a perfect one you can potentially put Rio on, because it takes it from a 3/6 to a 6/11, and then also an extra 1 power thanks to it being a transport as well. So you can have a 7 sorry, 712. No, yeah, sorry, 711 unit. That increases your indirect damage by 1, which is pretty nice. And then you even got War Juggernaut being a nice one you can even slap Rio down on, because when it comes down, it does damage to any unit, any number of units you want. And for every damage unit on board, it gets more powerful, and you can even chuck Rio on that to make it even more powerful and then harder to remove thanks to being a leader. You've also got a lot of nice events in aggression as well. Like you've got stay on target, allowing you to attack with a vehicle. Give it more power for that attack, and if it does damage to a base, you get to draw a card. So nice ways to swing and keep the cards in hand. You also got damaging ones like Open Fire and Planetary Bombardment, which are pretty cool. Open Fire allowing you to do 4 damage to a unit, whereas Planetary Bombardment forces your opponent to take 8 indirect damage. And if you control a capital ship like Devastator or Ruthless Raider, you get to do 12 instead. And if you do have Devastator out, you get to control where that goes. And then lastly, you have Pillage being a nice way to force your opponent to discard cards from hand, making for a nice hand control kind of way to play, thanks to the aspect combos. So if you like aggression and throwing out damage, aggression is a perfect one for you to try. Also remember that Villainy cards are not just traits on the other aspects, but on their own cards as well, so you got some pretty nice ones. And here are some pretty good ones. Like you got Viper Pro Droid as a good one for the Droid package if you want to go for Cunning. You also have some good space units like Shuttle ST, Fire Spray, and even Hellfire Tank as good ones you can potentially play out. A Hellfire Tank can be played cheaper than 8 because of its got exploit, so you can even bring this out earlier so then Rio can deploy when it can deploy and jump on a huge tank to kind of hit hard, turn it into a 10, 11 ground unit that can just then hit him really, really hard. And even that Vet Fire Spray offers some damage. What Shuttle T, Fine ST gives you shields and move around opponents. Takes control of one of your opponent's token upgrades. And now we have the last bit of the series last bit of the video where I like to go over my preferred aspects, because this is something that kept being asked in the early stages of the game when I was doing this series, but since set 3, so last set, I've started incorporating this into the series so it can help out people, because sometimes you might be watching and thinking, I still don't know what to play, and then a little bit of help might go an extra bit of the way to help you decide. So I decided to add this on, and if I were to play Rio, which I'm kind of tempted to, I would play it with aggression as the main one, because I like that. I like the whole damage focus, and then cool shenanigans with like Planetary Bombardment. It's just such a good card. I just love wanting to try it out and just drop it, especially if I can get a Devastator out and then drop this as well. It's really, really cool. And if I weren't playing aggression, I would probably play Vigilance, because I like to play control, I like to play blue, I like to play a defensive way to play, and then the whole interaction with Corvus, getting dropping Ray out in the ground, being able to attack with it, and then play out the Corvus, chuck it, then take it from the ground and chuck it on the Corvus. It's pretty cool as well, and the removal options to have that peace of mind when it comes to wanting to take out something and take out a threat of your opponents is just too good to pass up. So this is how I want to play the game. So if that helps, then effectively that's there for you. And that brings to the end of the video. So that is Rio Durant, and hopefully it's helped you understand how to build him to suit you and your playstyle. And do remember that you can like, comment, and subscribe to show support to the series and the channel. And that is it for the Villainy leaders. We got 2 more leaders this week, being the Ever ones and Cunning, being the heroic ones, being Akbar and Kazuda. So if you're interested in those ones, stay tuned. And that's it for me today. So I'll catch you next one. Bye for now.